Hey guys, welcome to another Warframe video, and today we're going to take a quick look at Korra's signature sidearm, the Hystrix, that was just released a few days ago with the Beasts of the Sanctuary update. If you want to get your hands on this puppy, you can simply buy the blueprint from the market for 25,000 credits. Now to then build the weapon, you have to invest additional 20,000 credits, sacrifice 1 Bolto, 1 Viper, and add in 9,750 ferrite and 15 control modules. The Hystrix is a fully automatic pistol that requires you to be at least Mastery rank 7 to use it, and it can switch between 4 different types of quills by pressing the secondary fire button. Each of the different types of quills corresponds to one of the basic elemental damage types that we have in Warframe, so there is one for toxin, one for heat, one for electricity, and finally one for cold. Now these don't actually do damage with their respective element, they just force the status proc of that element with each shot. So if for example you're using the ice quill, it will always proc cold. Also, the accuracy of the weapon isn't great regardless of the quill type. Now, regardless of the quill type, the weapon will always have a fire rate of 7 rounds per second with a 16 round magazine, 320 rounds in total, reload time of 1.7 seconds, 24% crit chance, 2.2 times crit multiplier, and 10% status chance. The only thing that changes as you cycle through the quills, aside from the different status procs of course, is the damage. So the poison and ice quills will do 36.1 damage with each shot, 31 is puncture, 2.9 is slash, and 2.2 is impact. And the fire and electric quill will do 40 damage with each shot, 34.4 being puncture, 3.2 being slash, and 2.4 impact. I think it's also important to mention that the forced status procs will not combine with other elemental damage types that you have on the weapon. So you can, for example, mod your weapon for gas, which is toxin and heat, and it will proc both gas and toxin. If, however, you mod the weapon for heat and then use the fire quill, it will combine the two heat procs into one chunkier one. But that's still not it, it's a little bit more complicated than that, because if for example you mod for radiation, which is electricity and heat, and you use the fire quill, the heat from the mod that's combining into radiation will be added to the heat proc from the quill. All the quills also have travel time, so you will have to lead the target a little bit, but it's not too bad because they're pretty fast. And yes, you can pin enemies to walls with them, and you can even damage other enemies if the first impaled enemy hits them. And finally, the weapon also comes with 1 V polarity as standard, which is always nice. Now, since I am really burned out on Forma, I went for a wee little bubby build where I've added 2 Vs and that's it. Now, if I were to go for a big boy build, I would add 2 more Forma, 1 dash and 1 V, and I would replace Scorch with Prime Heated Charge and the Pistol Gambit and Target Cracker mods with their Prime versions. But for now, I'm using a pretty standard hybrid build. I have Hornet Strike for damage, Barrel Diffusion for multi-shot, Lethal Torrent for fire rate and multi-shot, Pistol Gambit for crit chance, Target Cracker for crit damage, Scorch for heat damage and some status chance, and Pistol Pestilence with Jolt for even more status chance and corrosive damage. Now, I was actually quite surprised how well the weapon performed, even though I was just using a little bubby build with no primed mods whatsoever. Which is good because it's only MR7, so you can pick it up really early if you're willing to sacrifice a Bolto and a Viper. I'm also a big fan of the unique mechanic and the fact that each quill will force its respective status proc. The Toxin quill, on top of providing a ton of dot damage, will also bypass shield, so you can make yourself a corpus killer by simply modding for gas instead of corrosive. That way you get gas clouds which proc toxin, and the toxin damage you use to create the gas on the weapon will then boost the toxin proc from the quill. So all the quills are useful in certain situations. The fire one will probably provide you with the best burst DPS. You can use the electricity one for a little bit of a splash crowd control because it will chain to nearby enemies. And if you just want some single target crowd control, you can switch to the ice quill and just slow the enemy down. The weapon is just really cool and very versatile, so I would highly recommend you play around with different builds, maybe even have multiple setups for different factions and different quills, and kind of figure out what you like the most. So overall, I'm very happy with the weapon, with the exception of the magazine size. It just feels too small for a weapon that has this much fire rate. It's not annoying because the reload time is relatively fast, it's 1.7 seconds, but it can sometimes feel like you're doing less damage than you actually are. And I know that sounds weird, but if you unload into an enemy, it just doesn't feel as good when you have to reload and then fire again, even though you're not firing that many quills. It's just really weird because once you go up against some of the chunkier level 100 enemies, you will fire off the magazine, which is super fast and does a ton of damage, but then there is this delay when you're reloading and then you finish them off. It just doesn't feel as good as killing them sub 1 magazine. But even with that said, I still give this weapon a thumbs up. It is a lot of fun and I would recommend you pick it up unless you don't want to sacrifice a Bolto and a Viper or you don't like weapons with travel time. And that's pretty much it. So I thank you very much for watching as always. I hope you've enjoyed the video and it was helpful, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.